This is That Twin Mama podcast. But hey, you don't have to be a twin mom to be here. I'm not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom. So whether you are new, soon to be, or seasoned parent, or maybe you just hope to have kids someday, I promise you'll find something to love, learn from, or laugh at in each episode. I'm your host, Lauren Berty. Let's do it. Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back. Your host, your girl, Lauren here, and we're back for part 2 from our conversation, continue our conversation that we had last week with Rhianna Schoeller on transracial adoption. So last week, we really covered some of the unique challenges that she had as being a mom through the adoption process, through foster care, through transracial adoption, and all the unique challenges that come with actually transracial adoption of being a white family adopting a Black child, and some of the things that they did to uniquely position Tiana up for success with navigating her culture, her heritage, remaining close. She shared a lot of resources that they use. And so definitely check that out. And this week we're going into open adoption. She and her husband made the decision to keep an open adoption for Tiana. And that has been something that has been beautiful to watch all over her YouTube pages. And that is something that we got a lot of questions around, where people are maybe scared or nervous about what that would look like. But ultimately, if you are someone that is considering adoption and are wondering more about the open adoption process, continue to listen on, and I hope y'all enjoy. Because I just know I can't relate, but I think about what I feel like if I put myself in your shoes. Would I feel like some sort of like, not jealousy, but nervousness? Is she gonna like want to be with her birth mom more than me? Or like, is there, I'm just insecure, I think, a little bit sometimes about that kind of thing. So was there any ever nervousness about the relationship that she'll foster with Shantasia, or has it just been like really great all around? Like, how do you navigate that? Or is it just me?
It's that part doesn't bother me because I already know when she's 13, 14, 15 gets mad at me, that's going to be
right. That's going to be
any kid does that.
I want to live with I used to do that. My parents are divorced. I was like,
exactly. Like I grew up with just my mom, but like when you get mad, you're like, well, if I lived with my dad, then I could be, like, so I already know, regardless of like how great of a parent you are, kids do that.
That's true.
And so that wasn't really a problem. I feel like my biggest concern was like, just, is it going to be best for Tiana, and making sure like that she's not going to face like disappointment from the other side. I had a lot of like, I'll be there, and then like not for my mom, but like for my dad, I had a lot of like, oh yeah, I'll be there at 3, and then you don't talk to him for a month. So that was my biggest concern. And but I think the fact that like I still had the chance to like, I saw that happening, so I could form my own decision, like when I was adult. So we don't have that situation now, but
that was something that you were probably concerned about as you were.
I feel like it, like that. I know we're going to go through phases. I know like at some point she might think like, I wish I grew up with like my birth family. That might happen, and that's fine. Like that's not her responsibility. I chose adoption. So that's my responsibility to deal with my feelings about it. So I don't want to sound like overly like confident, but it doesn't really worry me that much, because I know if we do have issues, like I'm doing everything I can to make sure she's safe, loved, and knows that like we'll get through it.
Yeah. It seems like every decision that you make is very much centered in what is going to be best for Tiana, period. Like I really like in some of the interviews that I've seen you and John do, it's like, you might have like feelings of like, but you take yourself out of it. It's like, what is the best for her? This school is the best for her. This daycare is the best for her. This will be best for her long-term, or we're going to at least try and make sure that it is. If it's not, then we will navigate differently. You know what I mean? So I think just grounding yourself and like as much as you can be empathetic to the child and what they might want as like, not as their 5-year-old self, but maybe later on in life when they grow up. I think that I see you guys doing that, or at least intending to do that so well. And I think that that's just huge. And so like, I just went like, that's just so awesome. I'm wondering for people and parents who are considering open adoption, but don't want to, is there any circumstance where you were like, it would be like, no, we are not doing open adoption, like that you would say closed adoption is the best? Because it sounds like more often than not, it is the best for the child to have an open adoption. But what would you say, are there circumstances where you would think closed is probably better?
I think that most situations, I would say open's the best. I think the case where if I would have chose closed adoption, the reason would have been sexual abuse.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes
Or
sense. Yeah.
sexual abuse, or like extreme physical violence,
Yeah.
or something that is unsafe.
Safe. Right.
Yeah, I don't consider like I wouldn't consider like addiction or like substance problems like a reason for a completely closed adoption. I
Yeah.
think it would have to be a monitored, obviously open adoption,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like something like sexual or physical abuse that like hurt the child and it's not safe for them to have
Yeah.
contact with that person.
Yeah. That makes actually complete sense. Or having like some sort of like, I think it'd be helpful for parents to understand, like maybe even making a list of, as you're figuring out, like, is this
Mm-hmm.
what's best? Is having like things like that. Oh, this happened. So this is like our non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And then going into it like that way. That
And then
makes
I
a lot
would
of sense.
keep all the like documentation because they're going to wonder about it when they're older.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, this is not safe for you mentally or
Yeah.
like physically, but when you're old enough, like, and we have like a psychologist involved in everything, and you want to go down that road anyway, I'm here to do it with you, but I know it's not safe for you right now.
That makes sense.
And that's where I would draw the line.
Yeah. Okay. That makes total sense.
I
love
think
that.
like something I don't completely agree with, like if the birth parent did something wrong that doesn't involve the child, I don't consider that a reason for closed adoption.
Yeah.
Like if you robbed a bank and like hurt somebody and like now you're in jail, but that you didn't like hurt the child,
Right.
I wouldn't completely maybe close that off because the child might not consider that a reason as well when they get older.
100%. I love that. I love how you think about that when you're navigating it too. I had a lot of questions too around. So what does Tiana call her bio mom?
She calls her tummy mommy.
Tummy mommy. Okay.
And
I love that.
sometimes she calls her Shantasia, and we gave her options and we never pushed her to call her one certain thing. And Shantasia asked us like before the first time we hung out, like, how do you want me to go about this? Like she's super respectful and like very open to like the situation. And so we're like, whatever feels right is fine. Okay. And so she'll say, like, come here, tummy mommy.
I love it.
And so when she gets older, I'm sure she's not going to keep saying that, but it's like, it's super cute right now. So
that is super cute. So you have a pretty good relationship with the birth mom then. Like, is that vital? Like, do you guys speak outside of like?
Okay. Yes. And we're just very lucky because of who she is. I can definitely see how it could be a lot more. We're lucky it's not stressful, not super stressful. I can see how if you're dealing with a different personality type, it could be very stressful and you just would have to deal with that and get through it. Yeah. For us, it's been good. And and so, I mean, we've like, obviously I'm not gonna say it's perfect. Like we have like come upon stuff that we've had to deal with before, but nothing like major life-changing.
Yeah.
And so she's very good about like expectations. Like she will say like, oh, what's your rule about this? Or like, go ask, like she said, I don't expect her to do this, but she'll say like, go ask your mom before she like gives her something when we're together. And that was like surprising to me because I didn't even expect it from her. Yeah. And so we're just really, really lucky.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a mutual respect, right? Yeah. And I would imagine that that's pretty important if you are facilitating a relationship to have an open adoption, like a mutual, you have respect for them, but then like the respect is reciprocated. I'm sure that she probably sees that Tiana's so happy. And so it's like, oh, ask your mom before, just because she sees this life that she's living. And I just imagine that's probably very important for her to see her daughter happy. Yeah.
Something I realized, like, even when, especially following grown adoptees or like 18, 19, 20-year-old, before I didn't have the same outlook on this, but they say like, just because like, I might be like, oh, like this is an example. I'm not saying this. Yeah. Tiana's has a better life because she's with us. And the adoptees will, not even just transracial adoptees in general, will say like, like that's what you always get. Like, oh, you're so lucky you have such a better life now. But they say like, it's like, you can't say it's better. It's just different. Like especially international adoptees that came from other countries where people will be like, oh, you got adopted in America. You're so lucky. And they're like, that wasn't my choice. And like, I don't have to be thankful for that.
Ooh, that's really enlightening. Cause it is, it's just different. Who knows? No one knows anything that would happen any other way. Right. You just know it's different and I'm loved and but I don't have to be like thank you so much for,
It's like that would be like expecting that would be like a birth parent expecting the child to thank them for getting pregnant and like having them. Yeah. It wasn't their choice. So they're like,
it's so true. It's like,
thanks
for having me vaginally versus C-section. Like what, like it's just, or whatever. Just thank you for something that
and they're always going to wonder, what if I did grow up with my like birth family, what would my life look like? And it's okay to wonder that. And like, you don't need to feel guilty. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I've learned from following that perspective.
Oh, I love that. I love that you really do follow that perspective too. Because even like as a twin parent, like I just sometimes think about making sure they have their individuality, but I don't ask other twin parents what they did. I like talking to twins, like,
yeah, exactly.
Feel, you know what I mean? Like, what was your experience? Like, what do you wish your parents did differently? Because that's the source, like that's who knows. So that's just like super helpful. I'm going to transition to some of the Q&A. Well, actually, before I do, if someone was considering like open adoption, if there was any piece of advice you would give them who's on the fence or maybe doesn't, know how to navigate it, what would be like one takeaway that you'd want them to know?
That it could be really hard, but it's best for the child in most situations. And like you can deal with your feelings, but don't put them on the child. Mm-hmm. That will be like my number one thing. And then also set expectations. Like if you don't set expectations, that's where you run into problems and like disappointment and disagreements. So you need to set like clear expectations, clear roles, a clear schedule. Yeah. That kind of thing. And I think so we like, this doesn't always happen, but we try to, we don't live in the same state or anything. So we try to do FaceTime, like, a few times a month. We, do invitations to all like the big events. So like birthday parties, like graduation, she was just here. Yeah. Tiana gets invited to her cousin's birthday parties, her biological cousins.
I love that.
And then like anything else, like if we're in the area or she's in the area. So we know like you don't want to not know what's going on and somebody's showing up at somebody's door and stuff like that. So.
Right. That makes a ton of sense. And I didn't like, I think like my assumption was with open adoption, like it's really just the child having a relationship with their birth parents, but it could, like you just said, like Tiana went to the cousin's like birthday party. And so that's actually just such a big bonus too. Like she has cousins, like that are her age that, or I'm assuming that she gets to like run around and play with. So it just seems like there is multiple layers and benefits that could potentially happen with open adoption, especially for Tiana. I love that. Okay. So a couple of questions we got that we haven't from my Q&A that we didn't answer is, I know you're a public figure, you have a YouTube channel and like opening yourself up as a parent in general online, girl, bye. These these comments, I'm like, what do you do? Do you not have a life? Like, why are you so unhappy? What is going on? So how do you deal with that? Like, do you set boundaries? Like, how does your experience been with trolls and like, what's advice or how do you deal with it? Because I'm actually curious too, because I'm sure you have a lot more maybe just by who you guys are.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay. So I deal with it better than John. I'll say that. The people will probably not be surprised. He gets like he wants to like talk to them and be like, no, that's not the situation. And I'm like, John. So full disclosure, I have filters on our comments.
Good. Okay.
And it's for Tiana basically when she gets older. So like certain words, like offensive words, like racist words,
that's
like
smart.
Certain words are filtered out and it pulls those comments into like off of public and into a private area. And then I have to manually approve or delete them.
I see.
And so I don't want anybody to ever think we don't get like horrible comments, but I don't leave them there because I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah.
So
it's not. Yeah.
Especially on YouTube, people get really crazy on YouTube. And so
that's funny.
That's how we deal with it.
YouTube is
John,
different.
I just went too far out of the camera.
Oh yeah. Okay, there.
One time, like a while ago, somebody was writing racist comments towards Tiana on our channel. And they, it was like an older white man. And so we clicked on his page because it was like more than one comment. Mm-hmm. And it was like his actual name. Like he didn't even make a fake account.
Wow.
Then John like posted something on his Instagram. He has like some friends in like the military and police, like intelligence or something. Okay. So then they found out who he was. Well, John, I'm going to say John did this.
Yeah.
Found out who he was. I'm not going to take credit, but he found out who he was. And then he found out, like he gave him a chance to like delete the comments and apologize. And the guy was like, no. So then he contacted like he found out where he works, and he contacted them, and his boss was Black too.
What?
And he worked, yeah. And so I'm not saying he only got fired because his boss is Black. HR fired him, but like you have Black employees, a Black boss, and you're online commenting racist stuff to people. And
to the little girl,
a little girl.
What? Wait, hell yeah, John.
Yeah. So he got fired. What? His boss like personally contacted John, and then the HR did as well. And so we were like,
that has to feel like some
you
sort
can't
of
have, yeah, like you can't have this like, he must have been I don't know like everything about him, but he must have been this 60-something-year-old white man going on kids videos. And John was like, we were like, how many other videos where parents are not monitoring is he commenting on?
Right. And the internet's forever. So, like you could see that.
You're so comfortably like racist that you're commenting from your account, like with your name on it. Like what else are you doing out there?
100%. I mean, I totally like it. I think I'm more similar to John in some ways, and I try to be more like you, but like there's certain ones where I'm like, yo, like I'm going to engage. And like for the most part, I try not to. A lot of times, like, it's when you go after my kids though, right? If you go after my kids, like Mama Bear comes out and I will look for blood. And that's when it's hard for me to disengage. But I love that. Like, I think that people think the internet, like having a screen is like some sort of protective force field. Like you can say whatever you want and you would never come up to me and say that in person, but like there's consequences to every action you have. And I think as creators, we have to like balance out which ones are like, okay, you're just stupid. Just like, I'm like, it's a fake account, bot account. Like I'm going to delete it and move about our day. But if there's ways to have consequences, I'm like all for it. Like I'm all for like making you stand up to what you just did and taking accountability for it. Like say it again. Okay. Say it to my face. I actually did something similar. I shared this on another podcast, but there was someone, I was like you know what the hot chip challenge is? Like you buy, okay. Literally it was a hot chip challenge video. It wasn't even anything about anything parenting. My daughter was just like sitting on my lap. I was doing the hot chip challenge and then she walked off but she has a birthmark on her eye, which is dark. So some people think like it's a bruise. And I'm just like, no, it's a beautiful birthmark, yada, yada, keep it moving. So this person was like, stop beating your child. Like, cause he could see the birthmark. And so I knew what he was trying to say. I was like, okay, stop. It's a birthmark. Stop trolling kids on the internet. Have a nice day. Peace. And I threw him in my stories. I was like, I'll let my followers annihilate him, whatever. And then he said something else. So, and he's just like, stop having incestual sex so your kids won't look so puffed up. I'm like, what the, like, it just didn't make any sense. It literally was like, you're not fully there. And my husband's white. There's no, it's just, I was trying to rationalize it. And I was like, there's no rationalization. But anyways, I go to his page and he's a dad or he's a father figure. There's with 2 daughters because there's girls and there's a woman, all these things on his page. I was like, that's weird that a parent would do that to a child just based on like the way they look, especially a parent to daughters, or at least a father figure to daughters. So I found his wife's account. I DM'd her a screenshot of what was said. I was like, you may not be aware of this, but this is what happened. I know mom to mom. It just is something that I would never want my daughter to see. I just wanted to put it to your attention. Something like I said it very nice, whatever. And she was like appalled. She's like, I'm sorry. He was probably drinking. I will talk with him about this. I'm very sorry. Gosh. And I'm like, I hope, yes. Like, I mean, because people just out in these streets acting like no one else will know in their life that they're behaving this way. And I'm like here for accountability. I don't know if he got fired or divorced. I don't think he got that far. But here's the John getting somebody that needed to not be working with Black people or any corporate position out.
I was like, my instinct is just to delete it, like delete. And he was like, no. And I was like, and then like, I was like, like you're right. And he got what he deserved. But a lot of them, you can tell like what's just crazies. Like where like they'll be like, mom looks like she like, why does the mom look so tired and ugly? Like the dad, like just like weird stuff. But most of the negative comments we get are not towards Tiana, they're towards us. And so it's like a lot, it's mostly against like our parenting. And or something like we said. And so like I'm thankful for that. It's 99.9% of the bad comments we get are towards us and like they like her.
That's like and I think like I honestly think same with me where I'm like if it was all negative like towards my kids or like everything and it was a lot of negative hate, like maybe my page wasn't liked like or something or was like a negative, I'd be off. I'd be off. You know what I mean? Like there's so much more positive. I know we're talking about the negative trolls, but there's so much more positive that you are spreading and so much more knowledge you are spreading. Like if you go to her page, the comments are like the love, like people are like crying. It's very wholesome and the value add that you are giving people who might want to do this experience is huge, where I'm like, the trolls are annoying. They suck. And it sucks that our bodies are meant to give attention to like the one negative thing and see a beautifulness. But all to say, I think because we both get way more positive feedback, that's why we continue like to do what we do, which I love. Okay, let's talk about John. Okay, so John, if y'all could look at some of her Q&As that you do as a couple, but like he was part of the reason why I like fell in love with your family, because this man, you say Tiana's name and he start crying. Like I'm like, this man loves his daughter so much. It was just so sweet. It was so sweet to see. And so I wonder, like, as parents, once you become parents, your relationship just changes. Like no matter how you become parents, how has this process affected your marriage, and in what ways, good or bad? Curious.
The biggest change I would say to becoming parents was like I knew this, but I didn't really know it till it happened, is how much you lose time together. Yes. Like we used to go to the gym together every day. Like we would like eat dinner together, and then it becomes like you're having to go to the gym separate times, and then you're like just running around at dinner time. And so it's like, you have to just look at the long term, because it's a temporary, like you're going to miss this when it's over. And it's back to just you two. Yeah. It's a temporary like sacrifice, I guess, but is it a sacrifice because you're gaining something else? It's really complicated. Yeah. And then you're the other thing was like communication, like making sure, especially now that she's older and she can understand, like ask mom, ask dad and stuff. Yeah. So we communicating, making sure we're on the same page. Like, and even if I don't agree with him or he doesn't agree with what I'm saying, we have to back each other in that moment and talk about it later. Yep. And that was something like one or two times we didn't do that really quick. We were like, okay, we can't do that. We have to like wait till later and figure it out.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Keep on going.
Oh no, those are like the two main things that I noticed changed.
Yeah. Time, no matter like how you, like that's something I think every parent underestimates, is like just the quality time of just you two. Like it can't be the same. There's another person now that you're, taking care of. And so that is definitely, I think that something that all parents figure out very quickly, and just making that extra effort to have. I'm also just curious because there's so many things that you all have had to navigate, which every parent has to navigate things as they're raising their child. But I think because you have adopted Tiana, and there's a birth family and all these different things where people have very different views of how to navigate it. Has there been a time where you guys thought differently about what you should do as the next step? And how did you, if you did have a disagreement, like how did you figure out what to do? Or maybe you guys
in our marriage, is that what you mean?
Yeah, in your marriage. Like I'm wondering, like, was he on board completely with the open adoption as well? Is he on board? Like, I mean, obviously he is, but like, was that a conversation you had to have, or like even how she calls her bio mom, like things like that? I'm curious, were you just on the same page, or how did that look for y'all?
We're like pretty much on the same page about everything. We're lucky for that. We met like when we're super young and like grew up together. So we like, we're very similar and know each other really well. So there's it's like very rare or almost never that something will come up that like, we're like, oh, you think that? Like that like never really happens. So he's more feisty than he's more like passionate. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm not passionate, but like I'm a more like level. Yeah. And he's more like emotional. Yeah. And so, and also he's like really protective. So he will, especially I think because it's a father-daughter thing, he will more quickly want to like cut something off, and I'll be like, let's see, like we could do this. Let's see how it plays out. So the open adoption was more stressful for him because he was like the first time a phone call's late, or the first time like this happens, we're done. Yeah. And I was like, we can't, like, you can't, like we can't do it like that. I was like, stuff happens. So we like balance each other out really well. Yeah. And it's funny because I'm I don't know. I grew up, I worked in healthcare. I was like an EMT in high school. I'm not saying this is the reason for my personality, but I'm like very level. Yeah. And like when a situation's going on, I don't react till later. So like like when the adoption happened and everything, I was like, I'm really happy, but I didn't cry till like we're in bed later.
Right.
And like, I don't in the moment, I've always been like that my whole life, but he's in the moment. So people are always like, oh, the dad loves his daughter so much. Like, and they think I'm just like here and they're like, oh, the dad is so sweet. And they're like, what's wrong with the mom? And they're like, the dad loves her more than the mom.
Oh my
and
gosh,
I'm like, it's just my personality.
Right. And that's so funny because like was like very moved by John, but like nothing to take away from you. But it is funny that you say that because I think it's the gender roles too. I think playing.
Yeah.
If you were sitting there crying or whatever, people would be like, whatever. They wouldn't even think about it. But because it's a male figure doing that, it just, oh my gosh, the dad, like, you know. So
and it's so funny because he was so like not emotional, like tough. Like he grew up in that like boys don't cry, like you like go hunting and like like he grew up like in the country and like very traditional.
Masculine,
yeah. And so like and he never like I never used to cry. And then like Tiana came and he's like he's like, I have emotions.
I know.
He's always been really passionate and like outspoken, but and like outgoing. But it's definitely been like beautiful to see, and like so lucky that he's such a great dad, and he's like so involved in like the day to day and like always there, and it's just great. I don't have to be like, oh, like I need to go do this. Like you need to do this with Tiana. Like he just knows what to do.
He just knows what to do. I know. I love that. I love that about my husband too. It's like, I've never seen my husband cry until like we had the kids, like for all the births, he was like tearing up, or when he talks about them, it's like, and it's nice to see. And I think also you guys have maybe experienced this, but like when we do some podcast episodes together, like it's almost like therapy, like, because it forces you all to have conversations about whichever, which you might not intentionally do for some, because it's just, you go about your day, there's no time, but you have to sit down, think about a topic and talk about it. Like there's like emotions and things that come out that I'm like, wait, you felt like it's been, I think, both like sides of just kind of having this platform of therapy in a way, and them being like fathers to daughters. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah. I noticed with kids, it's like, if before kids, if we got in an argument, you could drag it out for like a couple days.
Yeah.
And so like I'd be like, oh, should we like eat dinner together and talk? And I'd be like, no, like he was
I'm mad.
Like, I'm not doing that. But now I'm like, okay, we have 1 hour before we have to go to bed. We need to figure this out.
Right. I'm really not going to bed angry. I'm just like, I want to wake up and have a good day. Like before I may be like, whatever, I'm going to, make him steal a little bit.
Exactly.
And now it's like,
And so now I'm like, now we'll like put her to bed and they'll be like, okay, what's going on? We need to talk this through.
Let's talk this through. This is how I felt with this. Yeah. It's totally true.
Kids change the dynamic, and it's not like, I think people portray it badly, like, oh, you won't have time together, oh, like this, but it's not all bad. It's like a lot of teamwork and like understanding unspoken stuff. And
I think what kids do really just amplifies whatever's happening. Like if you are like a couple that may be a little toxic and not dealing with conflict well or stress, if you have a kid, it's going to get way worse. It just is.
That's true.
And if you are a couple that maybe like bickers sometimes and like has their normal amount of conflict, but like genuinely love each other and have at least like practices of dealing with that well, because you want to be together. Having a kid actually makes you, I think, deal with conflict sometimes a little bit better. And it just, I've never loved my husband more. I think he's so sexy as a dad. I'm like, yes, dad, especially if they're good parents. It's like a different like turn on, but like it just amplifies what's already there. So don't think a kid or anything or adoption is going to fix your marriage, because it will not.
I can definitely see how it can make it a lot worse.
Right, exactly. It's just going to amplify that. But Rhianna, thank you so much. So before we close, I want to ask you just one more question. If there's anything that you wish you knew about adoption before adopting for our listeners who might be considering it.
I think I wish I knew. Okay. Yes. Sorry. I had to think about it for a second.
Yeah. I'm
trying to go back to what I didn't know.
Right.
The biggest thing I would think is if you're going to have do transracial adoption, you need to be like, explore it more before you make a decision. Like, I'm not saying don't do it at all. I would never say that. Know why you're doing it. Like, what's your reason? And know like what you're going to, the work you're going to have to do to make it the best situation for your child. Cause you can't say, I don't see color and live in like fairy tale la la land. Like that
right.
won't. So I think that's super important. And then the component, I knew this kind of before, but the birth family component, like knowing, you need to know when you're going in, like what your goal is. And so I think that's important too. And those are the two main things, I think.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that you're saying like understanding like your why if you are considering transracial, and then really understanding the work that would be required. Because I think that people go into certain situations, no matter what they are, with the best of intentions. And you could be a really kind person and want what's best for the child, but not have done the work that's required to be able to do that, because you really don't understand unless you grew up as a Black child or a AAPI child, whatever. Like, you might not understand what privilege you may have coming into it. So really doing the work to understanding that, because intentions are great, but like at the end of the day, it's kind of how it lands. Intentions don't really mean anything if it lands and it's, you know, and it's harmful, right? So
Very
like,
true.
I just love how you're saying like, understand your why, but understand the work, and do the work is like not you doing like talk with people of the community, read different resources, like find other people or adoptees that have been through it, really doing the research that's not just like Googling, what do I need to do kind of thing. Like, into it. Yeah.
I follow a girl who was, I think she's like 30 now, and she was adopted by 2 white parents, and she's Black. And she said that she didn't like, she said she loved them. They're like sweet people, but like they didn't ever address that she's Black or brown. Yeah. And so she said, like, that the first time she realized it, she was like in school and kids said it to her.
Yeah.
And she didn't even, like, nobody ever brought it up. And so I knew like I didn't want that to be Tiana's experience. Yeah.
And that's like probably with the best of intentions too. They're like, oh, we don't see color, you're one of us.
Exactly. Like, yeah. And so she said even now, like as an adult, because she was raised in like an all white like circle and everything, that she said she now feels like she doesn't fit in completely with like anybody, because she's like, oh, I look like this, but then I was raised like this, and it's like, and so she's been like super that was eye-opening. Like, I watched a lot of her speeches and stuff when she was when Tiana was younger.
Right. I love that. Yeah, because being colorblind is not helpful. I mean, in like theory and idea, like if everybody was, and we really just like no one, but we are not in a society that does that. So you have to address it. So yeah.
I saw her on, I think she went on with Jada Pinkett Smith.
The Red Table Talk.
Yeah, that's how I first ever saw her, was a clip from that. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to check that out. Maybe we'll like link it in the notes. Well, anyways, Rhianna, you are the best. I'm so glad that you came on today. How can my people follow you along? Where do they find you?
All of our handles are the Schoeller Family. And so if you get somewhere close to the spelling of Schoeller, you'll find us, because there's nobody else with that name. And so that's how you can find us on all the platforms. And that's it. I love talking to you. Like, we don't focus a lot of our content around adoption, because we don't want that to be our family's identity, or Tiana ever feel like that's her identity.
Right.
But I love talking about it in like this kind of situation, because it's so important to talk about. And I think people don't realize like how accessible, or how like much of a possibility it can be for people who like are wanting to have children.
100%. And I just love your message. I love like and I said this in like the very beginning, but like a lot of your channels around vlogging and just following your family, which is just so lovely. But I'm always like curious, because the way you're navigating it so well, like it's a story that needs to just be told. I'm sure you're still learning. Like, she's 5 and you're figuring out things, and you'll share as you go along. But just thank you for being like taking up space. Thank you for being so willing and transparent and talking with us about it. But we'll be definitely checking in with the Schoeller family as like Tiana gets older, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, Rhianna. Well, this has been another episode of That Twin Mama Podcast. Peace. And that is it for today's episode of That Twin Mama Podcast. But before we bounce, I'm going to leave y'all with 2 requests. The first is, if you are enjoying this podcast, please follow along and leave us a 5-star review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whichever your preferred platform is. These ratings do a lot for our engagement, but also gives us the inspiration, the push to keep on showing up for you all week after week with some great content that we are sure you're going to enjoy. And secondly, follow us on our socials. You can find me at That Twin Mama Podcast on Instagram and at That Twin Mama on YouTube. On Instagram, you'll see a lot of short form versions of these videos, but a lot of content that relates to the subject matter week after week that I am sure you're going to love. So until then, again, thank you for showing up. Thank you for all your support, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Peace, y'all.